Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Strategic Planning Committee meeting here in the Council Chamber on Tuesday, the 3rd of March. Have we got any apologies for absence today?
Yes, Chair. I've received apologies from Councillors O'Donnell and Councillor Dodd.
Thank you. Have any members got any interest they wish to declare? Georgina Hill.
Thank you, Chair. Personal, non-prejudicial, pecuniary, just on two things. One, the Berwick Civic Society have commented on the Maltings application. I'm on the executive, but I'm not on the planning committee of that. And also, sort of involved in the project itself back in the day, back when it started in 2017. Commentary positively about the idea, but not, that doesn't prejudice me against looking at the design of the building.
Yeah.
So just, is that okay?
Personal but not prejudicial. Thank you. No other declarations of interest. So that brings us on to determination of planning applications. And for those watching, for those visitors or people watching on YouTube, I'll just go briefly through the process. As the chair, I tend to introduce the application, ask members if they've seen any site visit videos that might have been circulated. We then ask the planning officer for any updates, any changes to recommendation, and then he presents his report. We then come to the public speaking section, where we have 5 minutes for objectors, 5 minutes for a local member, parish councillor, county councillor, and then finally 5 minutes for an applicant or a supporter. The committee members then have an opportunity to ask questions to our planning officers, and then I ask for a proposal, ask for that to be seconded, and then we debate the application and vote on the application. So, ladies and gentlemen, we only have one application before us today, and this is an application that was granted permission back in October, and that is on item number 4. It's a variation of condition 2, approved plans, 17, the noise fixed plant, and 26, archaeological scheme of works on the approved application 25/00792/CCD, in order to revise the scheme to include more retention of the existing structure and the component parts of its use and related internal space to be reallocated to different positions within the new building, with changes to the internal and external design details as amended. And this is, of course, at the Maltings Theatre and Cinema on Eastern Lane, Berwick-upon-Tweed, Northumberland. So I would now like to pass over to John Sharp, our planning officer, to take us through this application. John, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, everybody. Just a couple of quick updates before I get started, just to highlight a couple of typos at paragraph 7.16, where I have put their, T-H-E-R-E, instead of their, T-H-E-I-E-I-R. Thank you. Got there in the end. And design is, I was obviously typing too quickly when I spelled design as well. As far as I can ascertain, that they are the only ones. So, as you've heard, the application before you is a Section 73 variation of conditions application, covering some fairly significant changes to the plans previously approved under the substantive application last year. As set out in the committee report, it's considered that these changes do not fundamentally alter the aspects of the approved development insofar as it would still entail partial demolition and rebuilding of the existing theatre building, and therefore the proposed changes now at hand are considered to remain within the overall ambit of the approved scheme. So let's start taking you through some of the slides. There are quite a few, I'm afraid. To begin with, the location plan, just showing the existing rooftop of the theatre there. Got an aerial view showing the same. This is the constraints plan, so the application site is highlighted in yellow there. All of the blue polygons that you see are listed buildings of one description or another. The red line just down in the bottom left-hand corner of the site is the boundary of the Berwick Conservation Area. The following slides I've grouped together into existing, approved and proposed plans in each case, just so you can get an idea of exactly that, how the building is currently, how it was approved last year, and what is now being proposed. So here with obviously existing site plan, the approved site plan, and doesn't change too much the proposed site plan there. Existing north elevation, so this is the front of the building facing into the car park, as was approved, and then what is now proposed. Existing south elevation, so looking over from the other side of the river, as approved and as now proposed. This is the east end of the building, so where the scene dock is, existing, approved, and as now proposed. And then the other end, the west end of the building, next to Eastern Lane, as approved, and then as now proposed. So I'll come back to that in a second. The north elevation, I'll take you back to that. So the north elevation has been redesigned to reflect the new massing of the scheme, with the mass of the theatre wall broken up with brick detailing and allowing flexible space between those for banners and so on. The main entrance is defined by the incorporation of a metal-clad frame and layers of perforated mesh to provide interest and to clearly demarcate the entrance into the theatre. In terms of the south elevation, so the rear of the building, the principle was established in the original scheme of breaking up the southern elevation into detached masonry blocks. So the architect has tried to retain that within the revised design. And as you can see in this one, there's actually a larger area of curtain wall glazing in the centre of in the centre of the building there. The east and or the east, sorry, the west end. Where's the west end gone? There. The west end of the building is broken up with varying brick colours to clearly separate the two masonry forms. The east end of the building containing the scene dock and the functional spaces are proposed to be clad with fibre cement panels, coloured to align with the brick that's used elsewhere on the building. Take you through some of the details. So this is the proposed brickwork, proposed fibre cement cladding at the eastern end. You can see the scene dock door in the middle there. This is just some examples. This has been raised as a bit of an issue with our building conservation team, who were concerned about the potential for diminishment of quality in terms of the materials being used. So this was just put in really to try and show you some examples of how the fibre cement cladding has been used elsewhere. Both locally, the white scheme there, the white building to the left is in North Shields, I think. The other one is not local. I think that's somewhere in Europe, but it was really just the colour I was keen to highlight there, which would be similar to what they're trying to achieve with the maltings. This is the front facade, so again the brick detailing there, and then the aluminium screening, so you've got the frame surrounding it and then the perforated screening below. And then the curtain glazing to the south elevation. Again, with the floor plans, which take you through approved and proposed. So this is level 0. This is the shoe lane level down on the quayside, which is now proposed to contain the cinema rather than the base of the main theatre. Level 1, again, is primarily the void above that cinema and green room, projection room, and so on and so forth. Level 2, you start to see the theatre on the existing plans, and then it's again the void over the cinema on the proposed, with dressing rooms and so on as well. At level 3, again the void over the original theatre, and then in this new proposed plan you start to see the sub base for the theatre block, which comes into being at level 4, which is the main car park level. Here you also have the bar and cafe and kitchen areas. At level 5, then you've got the theatre, the rehearsal rooms, the upstairs bar and foyer areas, and meeting room. And then level 6 on the approved plans, that's the roof showing the plant. Level 6 as proposed, slightly larger. You can see the lift overruns there and where the plant's starting to go, and then the roof itself with the photovoltaic panels and the other plants showing. This was a section through the building as it was originally approved. This is the same section. You can't see the theatre because it's on the other side of the building, but you can see the cinema at the ground level there, the kitchen above it, rehearsal space above that. A CGI of the main elevation as it's now proposed, and then some views with the existing theatre looking up from the old bridge, as was approved last year, and then as now proposed. One of the key points there to recognise is the malting sign, which is no longer being proposed. That did raise a few concerns last time around, so that has gone in favour of a solid parapet now. Same from Union Brae, the other side of the old bridge, so existing as approved, and slightly fuzzy, apologies for the quality there, but yeah, as now proposed. Site photos from the north facade of the existing building, the east and west facades, and the south taken from the courtyard down through from Shoe Lane, and then looking across from the other side of the river, and the other side of the old bridge, and then moving downstream towards Tweed Dock, and then from the Tweedmouth Town Green as well. And that is your lot. So if I may summarise, changes made to the external appearance of the building result from functional internal changes. Concerns are noted about the perceived reduction in quality of proposed materials, but the question has to be whether this proposal is acceptable on its own merits, rather than whether it's better or worse than what was previously approved. Members are reminded that it was accepted that the harm identified through the original proposals was outweighed by public benefits in the planning balance. It's officer opinion that remains the case with the revised proposals, and as such the proposals are recommended for approval subject to the conditions attached in this report. Thank you, Chair. I'm just being reminded about the consultation. Just to highlight, I mean, it's in the report before you, but just to highlight the number of people that have been notified on this application. There were, as you no doubt aware, a substantial amount of objections and letters of support on the original application. When this application was validated, letters were sent out to in excess of 500 people. Off the back of that, we've had 16 objections and I think 9 in support. So it's just really to highlight, what we've tried to do to, to make people aware of these changes. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, John. Thank you. Good report. We now come to our public speaking section, where we have Scott Sherrard speaking in support of the application. Sir, you have no more than 5 minutes to present your case. Over to you.
Very much. Good afternoon. I'm chair of the Maltings Berwick Trust, so that ultimately we're the end users of this plan. And I first want to reiterate what our chief executive said at the last planning meeting, that this is a transformational project driving positive change for Berwick and with notable public benefit. It addresses directly and perhaps uniquely the strategic objectives of the Borderlands Inclusive Growth Fund to create a vibrant, growing, and inclusive and connected region by attracting investment, increasing footfall, and improving the overall quality of life for residents and visitors. So that is about form and function. It's about providing excellent facilities, new opportunities for our young people, and a crucial inclusive convivial hub with a warm welcome for everyone. We treasure that the Maltings is much loved and respected across the region. Of course, the organisation is much more than a building, as recent examples like the Berwick Parade, Litany for the Border, our visual arts programme, the current Lowry exhibition, and our continuing schools programmes and youth theatre demonstrate. But a properly equipped building at the heart of the town will offer so much more. We are family films and school holidays, the Panto at Christmas, nighttime entertainment for residents and visitors, being part of an amateur show, seeing a household name in person on your doorstep, learning new skills and meeting the challenges of, for example, dementia or diminished mental health by finding a safe space within our community. So it involves and celebrates that community. Where that building is matters if it's to be present and viable and to have the significant economic impact it promises as the tipping point in Berwick's regeneration. It's the key reason for staying on the site, and that site we've occupied for 35 years, right at the heart of the town. And I will now try and turn my page over, sorry. The building must inevitably grow. There's no way around that dilemma, but we're delighted that this has been achieved within the constraints of the existing footprint. This inevitably involves an evolution of the historic townscape. And what could be more appropriate to represent that than an inclusive community venue shaping a future built on engagement, involvement, and participation in art and in culture. We are very aware of our responsibility on this in making this work, and I can assure you of our determination, our experience, and our expertise. The demand is there. Our temporary cinema is already outperforming industry benchmarks, but it's been a very long and challenging time coming. And so we do urge you to help keep this project pressing on. The Maltings Trust seeks to transform the lives of everyone in our community, and especially the opportunities given to our young folk. We have a transparent commitment to celebrating our past, whilst also realising Berwick's full potential, whether through our work at Berwick Barracks, the Granary Gallery, or at Eastern Lane. But for the first time, we'll have a building that is fully accessible, front and back of house, internally and externally soundproofed, environmentally efficient, with new flexible use spaces and a bold assertion of Berwick's confidence in the future. And its gorgeous views across the Tweed will provide another incentive for locals to linger and for tourists to visit. We believe in the power of culture to transform people's lives, and we want to make all of Berwick and Northumberland proud. And this development makes both of those things possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen of the committee, have you any questions you'd like to put to our planning officers? Georgina.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's always important in these things that whatever where our existing stance might be after hearing the presentation is an airing of objections. So I just wanted to explore and ask about building conservation. I've read that and I've just reread their comments and they're objecting. It's a pity that none of them were here today to answer the questions themselves. But from your understanding, I did see some, they were broadly in support of the scheme, but were objecting because we feel it's been diminished because of the height from the original plan and the materials. Could you just, from your understanding, tell me where they're at? Are they saying it's now more than, it's more than less than substantial harm to have that? And why, so if you could explain their position and why you obviously don't agree with it.
Ian's concerns, particularly with the original scheme, I think have come about from other projects within the town in terms of the height and the necessity of putting plant on the roof of modern buildings, specifically relating to the infirmary building. So his concerns right the way through this process have been to ensure that that is not something that you're going to be able to see from key views in terms of this building. So the applicants have gone to great lengths, looking at key views from in and around the town, and the impact that the building would have on those. So his concern, partly concerned with the original scheme, was that malting sign that, and that you could see through. His concern now is that it's still, can you see the plant? Are you going to be able to see the plant on top of this building? His other concern arising from this application now is, as you say, around the diminishment of the quality of materials. So what was previously approved in terms of the metal cladding on that central block, for example, was Corten steel. The metal cladding has been reduced in area and is now solely on the front of the building and has been changed from Corten to aluminium. The applicants have put across their justification for that, as you're required to do so, and as set out in the report, essentially we are still looking at less than substantial harm. He agrees with that, and less than substantial harm to be outweighed by public benefits. I think Ian's comments to me were he fully expected them to be outweighed by public benefits.
Yeah, can I come in? And this is an interesting example to how we use the consultees in the process, in that we don't filter, censor, or diminish any comments any consultee has made, either for or against it. And we wanted to report accurately that putting a significantly sized new large building in this site, which is an awkwardly shaped and constrained site, has raised some concerns from a conservation perspective. However, the conservation team need to be consistent in that when they express concerns about other new buildings in this and other towns, that they are being level-handed on this. But the conclusion that the conservation officer came to was that, as John has outlined, that actually, while he had concerns, he recognised that actually the balance of harm versus benefit was tilted in the favour of benefit on this one. Okay. But just to be clear, I'll restate it for all members here, is what we do not seek to do is not to report accurately concerns either for or against it for consultees, but we need to see them all in the wider picture. And I think it's reasonable that he had concerns over the original design because of its, it is bigger than the original building, and he still has some concerns about that. So he's been consistent with his views on this. But he, again, he's not saying that this tips over into anything, a higher banding of impact, and he accepts as well that the overall harm versus benefit balance, if you remember my training for you, is in favour of approval.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Councillor Swinton.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Swinhope Live. I'm a little bit concerned about the building. Is it right? It's been a 3-storey building and you're putting it to 6 levels. Was the foundations ever checked on this building for to see if it'll take extra weight? With it being an old building? And also, you're putting the plant room on the roof. Material-wise, are they using 316 stainless steel? Because you're on a seaside town, so you're going to have problem with salts. You're also going to have problem with salts on your aluminium cladding, same as a car wheel, you know. So was that looked at as well?
Yeah. Good. And actually, part of the story of this scheme is a story that you've been exposed to in some parts of the county. When we have any major project, albeit a new school or a major commercial development, often when the final design work is done and a specialist architectural firm is brought in who is experienced in this type of development, they do changes because they can say, actually, you can do this in a better way. And they'll have gone through now all the structural calculations and all of the actual pragmatic issues they've identified, like the ones you mentioned in terms of construction in here. So with all their changes, both in terms of a more efficient use of internal space, amending things like the molting signs and the construction and design, this is what they're proposing now because they think this is the scheme that will work on the site. And the matters that you've raised are brought up by both the architects, but also will be brought up by the building control certification for the project as well.
Thank you. Any more questions, ladies and gentlemen? Yes. Councillor Swinburne.
Thank you. Yes, Chair. The question I'd like answered is, what is, in conservation terms, what is quality of material? Is it to do with longevity? Is it to do with cost per unit area? What is the definition of quality in an architectural or a conservation sense?
Again, I can answer this. Quality is both a product of durability, aesthetics, and functionality. And certain materials have certain aesthetic qualities, particularly at the point you construct it and then what it looks 15 years later. Okay. And some of the concerns that were discussed, where there were some original concerns about the durability in terms of the material to resist staining, say, which sometimes render does, but those have been explored, and that's why we've looked at other examples where this material has been used elsewhere. So there's a natural concern from a conservation perspective that not by using very, very traditional materials, you could see adverse weathering effects, but those have been discussed and looked into.
Okay, so as a councillor down here raised the question about whether you use aluminium or whatever it is in a coastal location, whether that's going to be look the same in 5 years, 20 years, 50 years. I mean, we talk about design life of 100 years. I assume that if we approve this application, that what is before us is expected to kind of look more or less the same in 100 years, even if they have to replace some of the elements of the building.
And that's a good question, because actually we've gone into the detail as well of, if you think about straight render in its traditional sense, that does tend to stain, and render tends to look its best on the day it goes up. other materials both weather and can look actually different and equally attractive, but also we've been exploring as well, and we've raised these questions about how easy they are to clean and remove stains. And this material is easy to maintain than using flat render, which is difficult to keep free of staining. Okay, yeah. But all this is an interplay of between all these different design considerations, and this is why this application has taken, actually, saying it's a variation, has taken quite a long time to get to this stage where we can recommend it for approval. Because we've been eyeing out all of these questions that you've all been raising at length with the team who proposed the scheme.
Thank you. Any more questions, ladies and gentlemen? Councillor Swinham.
Sorry, how long are we planning this building's going to last? How many years? You know, there are a lot of buildings made of stone around Berwick. They've lasted hundreds of years, and this one's going to get built, costing a lot of money. What sort of timeline are you going to put on it?
Right. I don't put a design life on it. All I can say that the design life will, given this modern method of construction and the techniques, will be more durable than the existing building, which has been there since 30 odd years. It will, we typically look at a 40 to 50 year minimum period. However, we're not here to offer guarantees on buildings. All I said is that the construction proposed is more durable than the one used in the past. Okay.
Any more questions, ladies and gentlemen? No more questions? Could I have a proposal then, please? Councillor Georgina Hill?
I propose acceptance with all the conditions, and I'll speak to you.
Thank you. Is that seconded? Councillor Stewart, you're seconding. Ladies and gentlemen of the committee, any debate on this application? Councillor Robinson.
Just a couple of things for debate. My normal one, we're still building square boxes. We're still having to disguise them, and that's what a lot of the materials and all the rest of it was talked about. You know, I hope one of these applications someday, we're going to look at a building and it's going to stand in its own right, and we're going to say, that's beautiful, and it passes. However, harm v benefit. Given Berwick a cultural and entertainment centre like this, for thousands of its residents and probably thousands of visitors, far outweighs my petty concerns about how it's built, as long as it's, you know, and I've got to accept the planners on this. It's been properly put through the planning process. What I would urge, though, and just take this time, we keep seeing these projects come forward and we agree them and they don't get built. So please, can we see this one? This is another public building. Can we see, if this passes, can we see some spades in the ground? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Carr.
Thank you, Chair. And I'm very happy to support this application, as I believe that the arts and leisure in Northumberland should always be promoted any way possible. It's very good for Northumberland and it's very good for Berwick, I'm sure, as a town as proud as it is. And I'm sure that the Maltings will be what the Colosseum is to Rome. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Benyon.
Thanks, Chair. I think at the last council meeting, I sort of said my disapproval of the design of this, which hasn't really changed a lot. Unfortunately, for probably other reasons that have been noted, we're going to have to vote for this. I just hope, though, if it does last 20, 30, 40 years, it won't be looked at as many 60s concrete slabs that have gone into city centres around the country. And people don't say, how on earth did Northumberland County Council ever pass that? I still think it's a horrendous design, but I think for other reasons, it will be voted through, but I still dislike the design intensely.
Thank you. Any more comments, ladies and gentlemen? Councillor Fells-Aiken.
Yeah, a carbuncle, I think is the word you're looking for there. I like the previous design, I have to say. I'm a huge supporter of cultural capital, so I will be voting for this. I'm proud that Berwick's getting this for its community and visitors. Bit sad that they've lost the signage on the roof, and I hope that was genuinely through listening to the feedback rather than cost. But yes, just to say, I'd be supporting this. Thank you.
Any more contributions? Just one little one from the chair. Yes, I'm a great supporter of this application. I think, you know, culture, theatre, cinema, it's a great addition to a market town, and I'm happy to see that we're investing such a lot of money in Berwick-upon-Tweed. And, you know, I think this is a good application. We pass an application, then we get people who have a second look at the application and question it, is this the best way? So I really feel this is an application through a transition, and I hope and I believe that the application has improved as it's gone along. The internal layout is much better. But I also want to comment on the design. You know, I don't see this as a carbuncle. I see this as a building of our age. Now, you know, you can think back, and would something with an older design fit into the townscape so much better? You know, I don't think it would. I think we want a building of our time, 2026. And, you know, I think back to when I was working in London, they were building the National Theatre on the banks of the River Thames, and everybody thought it was a concrete monster. But, you know, it develops over time. I don't think it's a concrete monster. I think it's a very attractive build now. It was a build of its time, and I think this is a build of its time. And I hope the likes of Councillor Benyon will grow to love this project. So no, fully in favour, and I'd just like to invite our colleague, Councillor Hill, to round up, please.
Well, Councillor Benyon's off the opening day invite list for a start. I think this debate and the previous one, it was right that we gave an airing to the concern. There is I believe, a minority, not that that matters in planning, it's not a numbers game, but there were individuals who've been very vocal, put a lot of work into concerns around heritage and conservation. So it's right that we've had an airing of those concerns. But I think even if, you know, that argument, if there is some, and that's an argument, but there is some harm to the conservation setting, the overall benefits of the maltings, the reason it was in Borderlands because of its potential to be transformational, and the cultural scene in Berwick now, and I am biased, but it's an honest statement, Vista is really, really exciting. And the maltings is at the centre of that. It's really exciting what's happening in Berwick, and not just, and things linked to culture. So I spoke to an entrepreneur the other day who, because of the proposal of things like the new maltings, is going to take a punt and set up a restaurant and a bar, much needed restaurant and bar. So it's transformational, it's very exciting. And the building itself is obviously in a sensitive spot. And we mentioned this before, other theatres, you know, when I saw the Old Vic in London, the back of them is like back against a wall or another building. It is on the, you know, facing the sea in quite a sensitive area. But I was sitting in my ward over the other side of the river, and I was looking at the scenery, and there's, without any doubt, no objectively a very, very ugly building near there. And nobody really notices and complains about that. You kind of get used to it, and that's infinitely much more, you know, potentially not so pleasing in the eye. So it's a really exciting project. We've had a really good debate. But I think the case for supporting it is overwhelming.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen of the committee, all those in favour of this application? Thank you. Those against? Those abstaining? One abstention. That application is approved. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, this afternoon the only other item on the agenda is a Section 106 update for your information, and that's on pages 37 to 40. Are you happy to accept this update? Thank you. I have no urgent business, so I'd like to thank you all for your attendance today and your contributions to this planning application.